What are our possible military options with North Korea? Now that we know what's in our arsenal from Lucas, let's bring in our Fox News military analyst and host of War Stories, the retired Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North. Thanks for being with us. Okay, so we know part of what we can do, but I wrote down part of what Lucas said, and I think this is important. We've been doing show of force missions. This is going to be something very different. So what's really deployable in our arsenal? What is reality, Colonel?
Well, look, let's take one step back from that, because I'm a firm believer that the military option, Harris, has to be on the table. But before we do that, we ought to exhaust all other opportunities. And I'm not talking about, months more of these so-called dialogues where they continue to build weapons while we talk to them. What we have to do is convince President Xi in Beijing that we are deadly serious about this, because the only leverage we have is really China. So what he needs to do, what the president needs to do, is press hard for President Moon in the Republic of Korea to bring as many THAAD missile systems as we can deliver, and even press Israel on providing the Iron Dome or David Sling systems to deal with the North Korean artillery. Number two, return the tactical nukes to the Republic of Korea that we withdrew back in the 1990s. Number three, deploy another carrier strike group in addition to the Reagan, and more long-range strike aircraft and air-to-air tankers to Guam and Okinawa. These are visible activities that will get the attention of if not Z, at least the Politburo. They need to deploy search and rescue assets. How about asking Z if we can base some SAR assets in China to recover air crews? Unlikely he's going to agree, but it may wake up the Politburo. Number four, deploy the USNS Mercy hospital ship from San Diego to Busan and the U.S. naval ship Comfort from Norfolk to Japan. It shows we're serious and we're getting ready. Deploy a U.S. Navy Marine Expeditionary Unit back into the region. Dust off the target list. In other words, additional intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assets. And finally, deliver biological and chemical weapons equipment, protection equipment to the Republic of Korea. And lastly, pray that Z sees the light so we don't have to use the military option.
You know who is going to see the light? I mean, when you talk about dusting off the target list, this is something that you can put into play. Like, you have just listed the things, and it became very clear. You probably saw me looking down, taking notes there, because the two countries that got on board, Russia and China, they're going to know the meaning of these things immediately. So those phone calls then perhaps will be made to Kim Jong-un. Hey, even stronger than China's recent statement, which basically also took a shot at the U.S. But this is interesting. So this is even before another list that Ambassador John Bolton to the UN gave us, and that's preemptive strike on North Korea. Let's look at that list. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, and maybe the two go hand in hand. So you've got a preemptive strike on no nuclear facilities, missile factories, and launch sites. This is per Ambassador Bolton, what he would suggest as military options, separately from what you've said somewhat. Wait until missile is ready for launch toward America, then destroy it. Use airstrike special forces to destroy national command and seize nuclear assets. I almost hear you, though, Colonel, saying do all of those other things before you even get to the ambassador's list. Your thoughts?
Well, you would have to do them anyway. And what I'm suggesting is if the president orders those kinds of deployments, those assets positioned where they could strike, that will convince Z, and maybe, although I doubt it, Kim Jong-un, that we really are deadly serious about this. This is an existential threat to the United States of America, to every civilian in this country, because you never know where one of their missiles is going to go. If you're going to launch military operations, you have to do those things first anyway. Make it very clear to everybody we're deadly serious. And if you have to go to the military options, the first thing you do is take down their air defenses and their leadership communications with cyber attacks and, let's call it, special weapons. And then, two, you've got to take out the nuclear and ICBM sites. Number three, take out their North Korean artillery and rockets up on the DMZ. And finally, eliminate the North Korean missile threat to our shipping out there. Ideally, you would do all those things simultaneously.
Okay.
But it's not going to happen simultaneously. You got to do them all pretty quickly, though, because otherwise it is a true catastrophe all over that peninsula.
So that's my next question, the collateral, the fallout. I mean, it sounds like we mean what we say when we say that they are outmatched. I mean, clearly from everything that you're saying right there and from what Ambassador Bolton has said is possible. Unmatched. But will they be undeterred? I mean, you've heard some pretty terrible things heard about Kim Jong-un, rather, in terms of his maybe sanity and his ability to stay sentient here for the conversation ahead. Is he really crazy enough to go for this is a big question. And what do we have the intestinal fortitude to do back?
I'm old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. This is much more serious because we knew that the Soviets, and today the Russians, want to survive the experience. Mutually assured destruction worked because they did want to survive it. There's no such assurance with either the Iranians or the North Koreans that they have that same survival instinct. And so what we're looking at is trying to pressure. The only real pressure point we've got with these guys in North Korea is China, and convince China that you don't need, the population of North Korea is about 25 million people. You don't need 5 million boat people and people walking across the Yalu River to get into China. Because it'll be a disaster for everybody, not just the North Koreans.
Real quickly before I let you go,
it's very damaging to South Korea.
You saw the threat against Guam and our military bases there. Where do you think we should be when it comes to, well, whatever target North Korea says it's going to throw out there? I mean, do we wait, or are you in favor of a preemptive strike?
Look, I'm in favor of a preemptive strike if we've done all the things that I just outlined for our administration to do, and they don't work. If they don't work, in order to protect the American people, no president, doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat, no president can allow this kind of existential threat against the homeland to continue. It's got to stop.
All right. Colonel North, you gave us a lot to think about, but that idea of being outmatched, they need to get that message, because what you just said puts an exclamation point at the end of that sentence, sir. Thank you very much.